Today is Thursday, May 15th, 2025, and this is a meeting of the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee. This meeting will be held in person, the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting or hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with a particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting 375-414-6055 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100 prior to the meeting. All right, wonderful. I call us to order at 6:03 p.m. Can I get a motion to either approve or amend the agenda?
Motion to approve or amend the agenda.
Okay.
Second, all, do we have any amendments? So,
Ryan's stuff.
oh,
He doesn't know about pushing the button.
Yeah.
He's gotta push the button to get in the door. He thinks it's lost.
does he have trouble reading? This is a.
Yeah.
I never saw it. I tried kicking the door, you know.
The door opens out.
It's not intuitive, it's like.
I was gonna break the glass to the windows.
We are open, push the handicap button to enter. That's what essentially.
The agenda has been seconded.
Okay, and we have no committee members virtually, so all in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, wonderful. Next is the approval of the March 20th and April 10th meeting minutes. Dennis, thank you for getting those done and for sending those out to the group. If you did not review those in advance, I have printed them on very tiny
Very
two-per
impressive.
paper print. There's a lot of paper for this meeting, so your punishment for not reading them in advance is you have to read them very tiny.
Is this for the March 20th? Is it just one page?
Yeah, so it would have been front and back. I thought it was more pages like this one, so maybe I didn't have to print it in small.
Are we missing the, like, public input? Next meeting adjournment?
Yes, we are.
Oh, no. All right. No, it was correct. I wonder if I messed it up when I printed it. Did everyone have a chance to review it though, or no?
I reviewed them. I'll make a motion to approve the March 20th. Minutes as submitted.
The packet I have has minutes with what.
Yeah, that's the second
Okay,
set.
okay.
Yeah, I think I'm missing one page.
Okay.
Okay, that, and I'm sorry, guys. All right, so there's a motion for approving the March 20th ones. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right, wonderful. All right, so then the complete minutes are available for the April 10th one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, I read the April 10th before I got here, so I'll make a motion to approve the April 10th, 2025
I'll second.
minutes for the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee.
Did everyone have a chance to review it? It looks like people are reading. I'll give you a second to read.
Many thanks to Dennis.
Yes, that would be.
A little bit, yeah, there, it's a work in progress. I need to get much word.
Okay, any discussion? All right. All in favor of passing the April 10th minutes? Chair says aye. Well, that brings us to the text and approval of the invoices.
You don't like it, though. Been doing that for decades.
Yep, so you folks, I think you received the vendor invoice package
Mhm.
for the two recommended invoices for the month of April.
Yeah, this is more or less a stripped down version of what we would be doing during construction, because there's only two vendors here on, under contract. This would really start to flesh out and become more voluminous as we get into signing on more contracts, so. This would be kind of a one-stop shop for all invoices on a monthly basis. For the appropriation that we have currently, we're asking anything from the town that is purchased on the side that is part of that original appropriation. At least we can reflect it in here so that we know what remains on there, so.
We do have two more that just became available the last day or two, so do we want to do
Two more.
two more invoices? So do we want to send those? Is that the correct process? Send them through you first and then back to the committee?
Yes, so what you received, so this is for April. The two other invoices were, do you know what? who they were
For the, what them said, the one for the, shear wave velocity testing, and then I'm hoping we will approve one
That Dan
for,
had mentioned earlier.
that Dan had mentioned.
I think the best way,
Yeah.
regardless, even if we voted today,
Uh-huh.
we would reflect it in our next
In the
memo,
next
just to
one,
show
okay.
that how it was shown in the minute.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
Madam Chair, so the money that has been allocated or was allocated for the shear wave is some other. So we're not approving the allocation of the money, we're just approving the payment of the invoice. The allocation of the funds has already been done in a prior vote.
So that, so particularly for the shear wave one, we kind of rolled that under, remember a couple of months ago when we had like $25,000 worth of site testing? We sort of rolled that one under the soil testing for that.
Sure.
But going forward, we would be voting to allocate the money for that, to engage in a contract for that, and then you would be voting again to pay the invoice.
So there are two separate votes, one to allocate the funding, and the second vote is essentially confirming that the work was done and we feel
And that it's
comfortable
okay to pay
paying
it.
for it.
Yeah,
correct. For example, too, I think in the future, I'll take an example, we have a testing agent that we want to bring on, we'll provide a proposal for you to commit the money to them. Then we would engage with the contract, and then they can invoice against that purchase order that we would bring in one of our packets that they'd be billing against, that we could also do.
I see. I mean, we don't have an issue voting on the bill for the seismic testing, or shear wave testing now, do we? And adding it to the,
Yeah, we can do it.
the guy, we approved the fact that was the work was gonna be done. It's completed the work and we got some
Move
money.
the amount to, move the amount to.
No, should I, we just build that on.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know.
We have no issue with that too.
Right.
We can
Okay.
retro for the next packet, just to say that had already been approved and put that in the.
So do you?
That was $3,800 to HRGS.
And it's gonna be a real savings for us too, because Dan will tell us about that, but our engineers are very pleased that we don't have to do serious moment work on these, a lot more steel, a lot more detailing. So it simplifies it a lot.
So,
Very positive.
Madam Chair, would you prefer a single motion for all three invoices or separate motions for each?
So because we're doing two within and one outside of the invoice packet, maybe all three of them, but I think going forward, it would be to approve all the invoices in the invoice packet as one.
Which is what we'll do now.
I'm saying if you want to do them separately, since one of those invoices is
Oh, I
not
see.
in the packet, you could do them separately, but going forward, we wouldn't need to.
And I think going forward for efficiency, we want to get this out to the committee before the meeting so that you guys have time to review it. So for expediency, we can say we recommend this packet that right here all in one fell swoop. I that for.
So I move that the committee approve the invoices for the payment of $12,982 to Vertex Companies and $54,860 to Kaplan Architecture.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the committee approve the invoice in the amount of $3,800 to HRGC for seismic testing.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's aye, wonderful. Very efficient. All right, John, you are up with a design update.
Well, I had Dan, I think, send out a PDF of the drawings. So hopefully people have a chance to look at them a bit. This is a very early draft set, although we're moving quickly on this thing. My engineers have started on both the HVAC and the structural. And they're currently writing narratives for fire protection and electrical and MEP and structural. So those narratives will be part of the package that goes on June 1st to our cost estimator. And along with a set of drawings, our site fellows are they're going to be writing a narrative also. They're just getting engaged right now, so they're just getting started on that. A couple of things that I want to point out that maybe we didn't discuss. If you could put up the site plan, go back a little bit. I guess I live in New Hampshire for a reason, but the state has some really new issues that came in under the new code. One is they want us to be planning for 2050, where everything's gonna be all electric. Whether we agree with it or not, that's not my call. A part of that is an excessive number of charging stations. In fact, I know that our team online probably can see this.
No, I'm sharing this screen with them. Oh, I'll use the cursor where you are.
We have to do all of these. And plus these two, these will be habitat. These will be future. We need to run out the conduits.
Yeah.
We don't actually have to do this, the charging station. We're planning to have 2 charging stations with 2 cables each, so you can charge up to 4 vehicles. And because they're going to be handicapped, they're really handicapped for charging only. We'll probably have seniors parking there thinking it's a handicap space. I'm sure operationally you'll figure that out. And I think I believe you're looking for some kind of grant or something for the charging stations. I know they're out there. My last 2 projects, they got grants for doing the charging stations, which would be helpful because they're not particularly inexpensive. The one thing I'll warn you though, is that we want to make sure that when you go to do this, we avoid what happened in Long Meadow. It was early on in these charging stations and they went with a Canadian company, which went under. And they're sitting there with plastic bags over them right now, last time I was there, and trying to get them somehow integrated with a new company. I think they're kind of proprietary units, so they're working on that, but I'd like to make sure that we get something that is everybody's using, so we'll verify.
Does the town have any electric vehicles?
I have a plug-in hybrid.
Plug-ins only.
Does the town have any charging stations now?
Yes.
Yeah, and so you have a charging station there that you can be happy with.
Yeah, charge.
Oh, no problem, yeah. Let's look at those, and if you could send me that, just send me the note about charge point, and I'll have my electrical engineer make sure that she's working with that.
Does the charging company typically install those?
No, we run the conduits out, and if they're not ready at the time we're doing it, we put in a hole.
That was gonna be my question, is knowing we can find out what those charge points look like, it might. Any detail, we're gonna have some sort of a base.
Future use.
Well, we definitely like bollards. us older folks tend to run over things and, there will be curbing and curb stops. We'll be using, most likely granite curbing, because we find the concrete ones get beaten up by the plows.
Yeah.
If you don't plow carefully. right?
so,
Wow.
Um, but there's a lot of details that goes into our work for this particular use group. To give you an idea of all our curved areas, in the parking lot are beveled, so we don't rip the tires apart or ruin the wheels, which we have a bad habit of doing. But I just wanted to point out on the site, it's a larger number. All we have to do is run the conduits for those now. But we'll have those out there. They'll be marked.
Do you have this, and I'm,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that.
Conduit's an easy thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna run site lighting conduit, you're gonna be doing underground.
Yeah,
It should
sure.
be.
We'll put enough room in there to get any kind of cabling up.
Littleton uses charge point. Chums for the Chelmsford Senior Center uses charge point.
Yeah, we've had ours since
Now,
20 now. It's been-
there's another issue my electrical engineers brought up. It's under the new code. We just finished Wilbraham, which has a, I think we have an 800 amp service there. We're a smaller building than them, but she's talking about 1200 amps. Going all the way to, I'm hoping we size it down to 1000. That's a big service. We're kicking that around right now with her and we're doing, because it's brand new, some brand new code requirements. We're learning a little bit about it because we just finished Wilbraham and that wasn't there. It's now there. So she's getting us that information that came up 2 days ago. That also may size, we've asked the standby generator to be a whole building generator. We recommend that because if you're gonna use it, we don't like the word emergency shelter, but you're gonna use it for warming or cooling. We wanna make sure everything's working, kitchen's working, the elevator's working, it's all running. So for that kind of setup, we do a whole building.
John, could I ask you? The upgrade from 800 to 1000
Or
or
1200.
1200 and potentially.
Yeah.
What is the? I mean, how much does the cost increase as you go up every 200 amps?
He doesn't know.
Is there a big number or?
I'm just a lousy architect. No, my engineer will help us.
So
with
you'll
that.
pay a sizable premium on the size of the.
Cable.
The price raise that will be coming from the street into our transformer, and potentially the size of the transformer itself that we'll get from a back charge from.
Yeah.
Whatever the supplier is.
Yeah, and the transformer will be larger. And because it's a standby generator, we can put our switch gear in the same room as the electrical work. And the service panels get pretty big. In fact, we may be sizing that room a little bit bigger. We just started.
We just started.
It's just-
So, and the reason I wanted to make that explicit is
Yeah,
that as we bring this to the public and give them the final numbers on the cost of the building, et cetera. I think it's important that we be able to say that because the electrical code has changed and the number of amps required has increased by so, that added such and such amount, give or take. To the cost of the building. That is, it was not a choice on our part to spend.
well,
more money.
we're still gonna try and stay within our budget.
Sure.
But, and same with running NT conduit out for future charging stations is not a big deal.
Yeah.
So, but I did point out before you got here, the serious number of charging stations. Yeah, before the
The Stretch
future.
Energy Code called
New.
for like 10% of all parking to be EV ready. So it's gonna be conduits out there and then you gotta make sure you can handle whatever units might come in the future.
There are things we're all gonna be driving.
It's not, if it's a stretch energy code, that's one thing. If it's a change because we're building an all electric building, that's another stuff.
We're required to be prepared for an all electric
But,
building.
we have to supply the stretch energy code no matter what.
Yes, It's an add-on to the stretch energy code we've been working with for a number of years. And now this is just some amendments to it. It's not over the top, but it's,
February.
but yeah. And so she's bringing us up to date, Judy and our electrical engineer. Our HVAC system is all electric, so that will comply. And the design of it is to allow, the control system allows you to run it during exceptionally cool periods because there are heat pumps. So that's where we are in the parking area.
Can I ask one additional?
Sure,
question?
oh, absolutely.
So the service drop off area.
Yeah.
Are there gonna be larger trucks coming into this area for,
Your choice, but semi trucks are not.
not semi trucks, but
A small box starts, yeah.
is there enough turning
Yes.
radius to get in there and get out?
We gotta be able to get our big fire trucks in there now too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have not yet started that.
I just got recently contacted with the police chief about turning radiuses for the
Fire chief.
fire chief, sorry, right. Fire chief, and he just got me back. So,
Okay.
make sure.
So this area might.
Yeah,
be-
we'll start doing all kinds of, we'll have a plan that shows all the turning radiuses. And mostly meet fire requirements, but if they can get a fire truck in there, we're gonna ladder, that we're gonna, you know. And besides, these guys are very talented. I highly recommend that when you get deliveries, that you do it during off hours, because the parking lots get really full, and a lot of people are not paying close attention to where they're parking. I,
Good point, though, good question. I guess, you got the site plan up there somewhere? Right. I'll just point out for everybody here that Dan has the septic field here, but it could move up and down in that zone, but it starts getting steeper back there, so. And the generator is going to slide up a little bit, and we're gonna move the sidewalk out. And we're gonna enclose our HVAC heat pumps adjacent to the backside of the building where we can move in our feeds. And then that will be enclosed with a fence,
And we'll go outside of that.
walking path. This walking, yeah,
So this-
what it'll do is end up looking like this.
So there would be no corner there? It'll be a box.
Yeah, this would be boxed in here on a concrete pad. And the generator will be adjusted appropriately.
So right here is where
Yeah,
you're referring to.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to be able to do the cursor.
What'll happen is that, well, actually, this sidewalk will continue over to here and down and then back. And there will be a rectangular area here fenced in for the HVAC equipment. The generator will be adjusted a little bit.
Yeah.
More in line with this guy
A
here.
lot of outside HVAC.
And then the septic field is proposed over here. You see, we're getting a lot of topo here. We're trying to get it down in the flatter area there. And over here will be a very large and very shallow retainage area for stormwater. The building, and that's being calculated out.
I mean, to make that statement, you made that statement 3 or 4 times without it being a very large and shallow.
Yeah,
The civil engineer determined that already, and are they
he's working on
gonna
it.
look at that?
Yeah, it's very similar to what we did in Wilbraham. The reason for that is because if you do a smaller one, very deep, I got to fence it.
We won't be in subsurface, like,
No,
infiltration.
yeah,
bases,
chambers.
everything.
Not gonna-
Yeah, in more urban environments, we do chambers underneath the parking lot.
Yep.
But that's a lot more, we're trying to be. And by the way, you may get a duck or two in there, but there's not much standing water. This is very good gravel. It drains well. In fact, I think our perk test, hopefully it won't be too fast. But it's really important that if we can keep a nice open shallow area with some wetland plantings around it, it'll look good and we won't have to fence it.
There's many times, see the strip between the Bishop Road and the parking lot?
Yeah. You do little rain gardens in there, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a setback right
A
there.
lot of shopping centers do that
Yeah,
too.
there was a lot of rain gardens along the street.
Yeah, but if we gotta put a line that's setback.
We're gonna try and contain all, because we don't have an obvious place to run water away from here. We want to make sure we would retain the majority of the water on site. And they're working on that.
There may be an opportunity to put in that lower left corner too, make,
Yeah, well,
instead of having one.
well,
big
that's pretty
system in
steep
front.
over there.
Well, it's, I'll tell you what, a lot of that is fill.
That might be one of our piles.
There's a lot of fill.
Yeah.
Burned 50 years ago, and some trees grew on it, so
Yeah.
there's ways to build around that.
Yeah,
So
no,
we'll leave it up to the civil engineer.
my site
He's the
guy, he's good. He did, long metal for us and he's nearby. I use a guy out of Franklin a lot, but he's a long ways away. This guy is right over the border in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Now, if you go to, first floor plan. Great. What Dan has been doing is that we're really tying down all the dimensions. And located things like, this not working. You know, we have.
I can't see right now.
Water. Bottle filler. So this is not changed. It's been revised according to the way the committee wanted to do it from our schematic design, or feasibility study. And now what we've done is our engineers now have did the column lines, which are, do they show up here?
They should, yeah.
Yeah, I know, see the columns are showing them.
Yeah, we'll see them.
And we held them off. We held them off on the actual steel design pending.
Well, we have that recent report,
Yeah.
so he's.
Now we got the report. In fact, he wrote back, yay. Yeah, he was very excited. I know how structural engineers can get excited, but.
Well, the one, I will say one thing, column wise, these two here, they go from the first floor all the way up to the attic. They will be getting changed because right now they're currently in the second floor, they go right to a stair stairs.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the only column you're gonna see that's kind of interfering. Everything else is all kind of like tucked away.
Yeah, and we're looking, there's some slight door rearrangements and things that we're making it buildable now, so but the dimensions are getting on, the column lines are on. And, you know, areas like this, these are return air ducts that are at the floor. And there's one on each side because we have a dividing wall, so all that's getting integrated.
Trying to, like.
Now you're doing a fine job.
What's that?
I'm trying to look at what you're pointing at
Oh,
over there and point at it over here.
Yeah.
And then the people on Zoom can
Yeah,
see
you're a
my,
lifesaver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I blind you though, that might be way around.
Can you blow
Yeah.
that?
You can return air, this is the big divider down there.
Okay. So where were the columns that he was talking about?
Yeah.
There's all narrow here.
It's different in
There,
here now.
there, she'll go over here, this way.
Like this.
There's a column here and a column.
That's what's been in?
Yep,
Oh.
these are arriving,
Separate.
they haven't arrived
It's
up
been developed a little
in
bit more.
an area that we're
Well, I
trying to
thought it
walk
was like
through,
just,
so
I thought.
they're gonna be fixed.
No, that's a.
No.
Okay,
So we just redraw it.
A little.
But this is why we're finding, there's been a lot of movement
Here, a little.
since we last spoke.
Coffee and stuff.
And
So where-
now
so
what we're
as you
doing,
come
we're
in-
finding where there's conflicts that need to be resolved. If you go back, the kitchen. The kitchen is set up to be, where's the dishwasher? Over here.
Get involved with that
This is
process.
dirty, this is clean. Your hood is over.
Sorry, here, there we go.
Your stove and your ovens, so the hood is over this.
Get rid of that corner.
So the
Makes it,
kitchen.
this is dirty up here and this is clean. Dirty's on the top,
No, dirty.
dirty's down here. Oh, this is the dishwasher down here. Okay,
Yeah, and it's up above counter one, slide it through.
right, okay.
It takes about a minute and a half for each.
Yeah.
Now, they're very different than our stuff that moves fast. Currently, we are looking at, if it has to be all electric, it's not a big deal, but I would like to know what the grant for going electric, because if it's only 30 or 40 or $50,000, it won't be,
Right.
it really won't be worth it. So
Now, did we do any, did we find out the difference in wattage between straight electric and induction? Because I was doing.
So I haven't found any, maybe you've come across them, I've not found commercial induction yet.
They're out there. I was talking when I
Yeah,
was
my-
at the food show, we talked to,
My kitchen guys just.
Trimark. Trimark had one. So if
Yeah.
you contact Trimark.
Well,
they're
I'll let
in
my,
Boston, they had one. The only difference between the straight electric and the induction is the induction, you have to use a steel pan, you can't use aluminum, it has to be some kind of ferrous.
yeah, it
So
has to
now the
be,
pans, the
induction.
equipment's gonna cost a lot more
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, that's true.
So what you're saving in cost, you're gonna spend in material.
well, it's a one-time expense though. Unless you melt the damn thing,
Well, you can't.
which I've been known to do that with my aluminum ones.
Then there's
But
time.
the difference between an aluminum can and a stainless steel
Yeah.
can is 3 times.
All right. Well, other than that, it's pretty much the same floor plan you've seen before. Upstairs, I still, a couple of things I want to suggest. I can get shot down, I don't mind, I can take the pain, but I really think it needs sidelights into these two rooms. Even though they're small, we had originally a lot of grass there. I think there was some concern about that, but the door itself will be glass. And you can see through it, but the sidelights help. What we find in community senior centers is that when other seniors are walking down the hallway and see action going on, they get much more interested in being a part of that scene. So there's a lot of transparency that we design into these so that people see what's happening. And the yoga ladies will be someone else. They'll give it.
Yeah.
But, that's this room. This room has a large open space. Also, the multi-purpose room for use for,
Why don't you take it out of the?
sit and be fit, yoga, and all those other things.
So,
But I really think we need some transparency to make these rooms. If you go to Long Meadow or Wilbraham, you'll see that when something's going on in a room, there's a lot of action. And that's what sucks in other participants. If you go to Chicopee, they have a puzzle room that's through an opaque door, and you don't know if anybody's in the puzzle room or not. You know, you have no connection to that. So we design our centers very transparent.
So the wall between the corridor in the room should be as transparent as
That's
possible.
awesome.
But what about the walls between the rooms? They can be solid?
What walls between the rooms?
Aren't there?
Like-
rooms
like
that just-
this.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't put glass in. No.
We looked at one that had that, but
Nobody.
nobody liked it, but it was because it wasn't being used as it was
Where was it?
intended to be. In North Andover.
No, I did North Andover. I
yeah,
don't
but it
know.
was like.
Oh, they changed,
We changed. it.
that was not the design.
Yeah.
The director did that.
Right.
It was all her fault. I'll write that in my resume.
There we go.
Because I do think that having,
Yeah.
it's just distracting for whoever's in the room.
That room that was now, she used this as a aerobics room or something, that room was open before, as an open, game room.
I see.
And they had a glass wall to the room next to it. And when she moved that all around, we still owned the glass wall.
Yeah.
We weren't gonna get rid of it.
I could put like a small, like 18-inch, or no, 24-inch little side light on those two areas. If that would be all right,
Well,
I can try that out.
we're gonna come back. I've already redlined that.
I mean, you know, as a user of the Littleton facility, are there glass walls
Yes.
in the new one?
Yes.
You know, so I mean, I've been the one that's been pushing it back against glass walls, but, I'm interested in feeling the experience, you know, as I do.
Yeah, and I think my next question is going to be, knowing that the building may not be 100% set, but is it something you guys have done a solar study on, just to check this?
What?
Solar study would be on the interiors? Take a look at what.
No. We have lots of glass, and by the way, you should understand that on the south side, we have, solar screens to screen the glass. And, also part of the design is that these lights, under the new energy code, you have to dim the outside perimeter lights during daylight. And they do all that, you know, with all that stuff, so that the light level stays fairly constant. You're not burning lights where you don't need them. And in fact, I think in a multi-purpose room, you don't need to turn your lights on during the day if you don't want to, because we have 6 skylights in there.
There's 10 actually,
10.
currently it's 10.
So,
Let's make it 15.
but downstairs, there's 3 panels. This is
Yeah, it's half.
this half glass
Like, yeah, so it's like they're.
Oh, okay.
And glasses.
and the glass up above. Okay. I mean, not speaking as a user, speaking as a director, I would like to be able to monitor as I go by and make sure all is going well, people are happy, things are going well. I
Yes,
like
you'll be
the,
able to see through these.
yeah, I like the idea of glass with the acknowledgement that if people really aren't enjoying it after some period of time of like 6 months, then we look into frosting the glass.
Or just,
You know.
you can also do,
Yeah,
I think there's a risk of having, with too much glass, that's the fishbowl effect, that everybody.
Yeah, and that's what-
Everybody
yeah,
is
that's
looking
what-
at.
Point out the
And-
fact that the other activity.
Well,
we have last sort of-
I'll tell you, I went
We
over
were
to the
talking about
lab.
this,
I know.
factored in.
There was a lot of glass, and from lab to lab, we didn't want closed walls where you couldn't see from one lab room into another lab room, so what we did was, we're half glass labs. So we had benches, you know, along a wall, and then above a bench, there was some storage, and then there was glass. So you could, if you were standing, you could see into the next room, but if you were sitting, you could kind of,
anyhow.
Yeah.
We'll.
But it was-
That's about how it's working in the cafe right now.
yeah. But it was
If you were
nice.
sitting at a table, you were.
And Katie, we've had the similar experience where people have lived it in and said, oh, wait, this is a little too much, and we go with some sort of like a applied sticker veneer. That you can pick the specific amount of light and transparency. Through it.
Yeah,
Relatively-
mostly,
Relatively short.
we had the little, track and just you pull a curtain across it, pull it at your will. It's not a big
The
deal.
fancy ones in the middle of the bar and everything.
We can push a button and have it. They do that, by the way. Have you seen that glass?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice. Let's add another 500,000 to the project.
They use those in bathrooms in Europe.
Yeah.
There's a lot of windows.
Yeah, that's the ones out of the street.
You close the door and.
Who has the Windex concession?
Yeah.
Just gonna
So-
do straight ammonia.
And then what's happening as she's standing through this, the elevations haven't really changed, we're just now much more detailed. A lot more dimensions on them. It's a combination of board batten and clapboard.
There's a stone base currently.
Yeah, there's a stone base. It's a cultured stone base applied.
Yep.
Mostly because we found that, that when the clapboard comes down or the board and batten comes down, it gets banged up, especially we have a sidewalk going all the way around it and they're gonna be plowing and shoveling it. We prefer something more resilient. It is a little bit more money, but I think it's well spent. It's about, it comes up to the bottom sill of the windows. And it's a, when we get around to picking colors and materials, we'll be picking the stone. And it's cultured stone applied to the frame system.
Is that around the whole perimeter?
Yeah,
The entire perimeter?
Just like a.
because we have now, currently,
The company makes.
if you, we don't go back to the site plan, but currently we have a walk-in area that goes all the way around the whole area.
It looks like.
And we're gonna be having snow guards all the way around to keep the snow from crashing down on people.
oh, good. I
We're in
wish there was one
Massachusetts.
over that door.
But in Massachusetts, it won't be snowing in 2050, so we don't. this is, I don't think we've done it for reflect the ceiling.
It's never done to the.
Oh, here, I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling. I'm just doing my, there we go.
So most of it's, upstairs are all 2x2s. These are full length ones of acoustical, ceiling tiles. We use, a NRC 0.95 absorption. This doesn't absorb anything. So, yeah, a lot of people in the, it gets all, the carpet helps a bit.
This is working pretty good, surprisingly, just the one you just did.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
but if you go to any of these other centers, you'll see using this particular ceiling tile really, keeps the background high frequency noise down, which is what we have a hard time hearing through as older adults. High frequency sound interferes with our ability to hear well. So we do a lot of work with controlling acoustics. Especially when you get a big crowd and everybody's chatting it up. And the lobby is a good example of that. We have a very loud, active area here. We have a quiet area over here. It moves from one to the other. And these are broken down into,
They're 8x8,
yeah,
grid.
copper type ceilings.
Yep.
And the rest of it is pretty much straightforward. Ceiling tiles, 2x4s, 2x2s. And then now if you go to the floor plan, which is part of our movement issue.
No, other way.
Okay, just looks me up. That was the other way.
You were looking at the finished floor plan.
What?
Oh, so am I going back to that? Sorry.
Everybody tell me what I'm looking at.
Yeah, the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah. Is this the finished plan?
No, keep going all the way
Yeah,
down.
I was looking at
You're looking
it.
at the last one.
More. I'm already.
There we go.
There we go. So what happens now is that the concrete ceiling is reflected in the floor pattern. The floor pattern is designed to give what we call wayfinding for a lot of people with visual issues. Allows you to see where you're moving. We used to do a little game a long time ago, and you take a big open room with absolutely the same floor everywhere. You put on glasses that are smeared up with Vaseline, and you tell everybody to stand at one side and walk straight across. And it depends how you walk like this, because we don't see the contrast on the floor. It's all uniform. And as we get really old, we wander around like that. This pattern allows you to visually, with macular degeneration, you're able to see where you're moving. So we give patterns on the floors. This room is a basket weave, and it's linoleum. It's a linoleum that has some acoustical properties combined with a ceiling system. And we put some acoustical panels on the walls. You control the high frequency noise again, especially if there's a presentation. People are able to hear it much clearer. And then the kitchen, bathrooms and storerooms are all seamless vinyl. The kitchen has a non-slip vinyl system. And it's seamless, so it's all washable and it's reasonably soft. So when you drop your wine glass, sometimes it will survive. Bathrooms are also all seamless. These are, and it has a different pattern because we're calling it different material there. But this is all seamless. It goes in up. If you go to an elevation of one of the bathrooms, and the kitchen is the same way. I think, Dan, where are they?
The elevations are way up.
Way up here?
Yeah, I feel like for the
Room
kitchen
elevation,
one, the bathroom ones
Yeah.
are
some of the below.
1.3. There you go, you live by it.
So that.
No, so they're off the floor. Oh, one more, go one more.
There we go.
So they're.
You see our line here?
4 feet. off the
That's
floor.
FRP up to this level. You can take a view.
That's the view in the bathroom.
Yeah, in the bathrooms. In the kitchen, it goes all the way.
No ceramic tile and all.
No,
Okay, fine.
yeah, it's much cheaper. Ceramic tile. Sucks. Excuse my language.
What about the janitor's closet? You use the FRP and the.
FRP all the way to the ceiling,
No, see, it's, I'm sure it is, Bill.
all the way to the ceiling and same in the kitchen.
Okay.
And when they come down to the floor, they integrate with a seamless roll up. There's no joints at all. So the bathroom floor integrates into the FRP. And the same in the kitchen. And the same in the janitor's room. So if you looked at a big blow up of this, of the joint here, you would see the vinyl comes up and integrates with a fitting into the FRP. Of course, it's all handicap accessible. And we'll talk a little bit with your facilities folks as to how you want to do paper towels or blowing air. We do usually do hand blowing air. And we do have a disposable integrated into
They're a standard supplier for town buildings.
We have-
Chuck would have.
like we see in the fancy places, there's a little bowl, throw paper in there and other stuff.
Sometimes they throw in the accessories. You have a contract with them already, so. It's-
Yeah, you may have like the way you want your soap done. Right now we use Bodrick soap dispensers and.
Yeah, that'd be a chunk thing.
We're not really big on it, but everybody around here likes it. What's that high speed? Air one?
Accelerator?
Yeah. Well, the problem with it,
It throws the bacteria all over the room.
well, the other problem is at my age, most of you guys are young here, but if you put your hand underneath your skin kind of moves around. Leads your hand. Yeah, leads your hand. I'm into a little bit softer ones, Toto or one of those guys.
You need a better skincare routine. Joe.
Yeah, no, I put all that stuff on me and it never works. So all the handicap stuff will get worked out. We do, almost all our projects have serious handicap issues that we want to address. In fact, even the main stair going upstairs, the risers are 6 inches. Because we want as many seniors walking the stairs as possible. And the width of the stair is about 50 inches, I think. 2 people can pass. Midway up, there's a landing with a love seat, not a love seat, but a snuggly seat. Yeah,
A resting for us old people.
yes. And then around the corner back up. So those are all, I think the stairs show up here, right?
I haven't fully developed the stairs yet.
Yeah, but they do show in elevation, exterior elevations. But
yeah,
that's-
there is in the, it shows.
that's the stair. It goes up.
Yeah.
And it comes around. And if you go to the seventh.
Sorry, we're moving it on you.
Go to the 7th floor, you'll see it better.
The landing, go to a
Yeah.
landing.
It's like a-
Words.
There,
There we go.
you come around, there's a bench here, so you come up here, come around, and go back up this way. 6-inch risers. Transparent railing system, we use HDI for our railings.
Standard trends.
Yeah, they're wood treads, but they have a luminescent and rough edge to it to differentiate the edge so people can see the edge of the stair. Otherwise, if you do the same stair, let's say maple, it all looks the same. So having that edge change is very, very important.
Excuse me, John. Dan, the stairs that go up to the emergency stairs, what do you wanna call them, the stairs that go up to the 3rd floor? Those also get finished.
Yes, they're gonna have a.
Yeah, they have a rubber,
Tile, what do they call it?
Yes.
they have a rubber, with a
With that
luminescent strip on it. So you can see it, if all the lights are out and nothing's working and not even emergency lights, you can, they glow, you can find your way up. And also, I've marked it up on our set. We need a little bit more room for our refuge.
Yeah, I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's not quite large enough. We'll have a space up here.
Oh, that little bit.
We'll have a space up here a little bit larger. We need to work with this a little bit in order to have an area of refuge, because I don't know why the codes do this, but rest assured that if there's an emergency and you lose power and your elevator's not working, or there's smoke and fire, the elevators are not supposed to work. We don't care about anybody who can't walk down the stairs. Yeah, I mean, that's the code, but we do, and even though it's only a two-story building, it's not required. For our senior centers, we have an area of refuge. It has a communication system, allows the person in there or the people in there to communicate at the front door when the firemen come in. And it's an alarm system, and they'll know right away if somebody's waiting in the stair upstairs, and it's a 2-hour rated smoke protected stairs, so. And there'll be enough room for maybe 2 wheelchairs, a couple of walkers. Small wheelchairs. Okay. But that's kind of where we are right now. There's a lot more going on. Our engineers are just firing up and they don't have a lot of time left. They've got 2 weeks to get us their narratives and their rough out for how they're gonna be doing the HVAC system. We're putting nothing on the roof if we can, but we have roof access. There's a reflective roof on it. The drainage is up in the roof, but all of our equipment will be down at grade level.
And then there's some stuff on the. Definitely.
There'll be some, like,
Up there.
No,
not necessarily,
no,
No,
nothing's up there.
yeah.
Not-
We're able to get like an ACC unit, which is also.
Well, it might be a little
But
split
that'd be
system
great.
for the IT room, but that's about it. Everything's on the ground floor.
But the big tall guys are.
And the big ERV unit is in the attic. And we'll be using ERV to meet the structure energy code.
I do have the attic plan up here, so you can see how open the area.
Sorry, what's
is.
ERB?
Energy recovery unit required by code. When you, in the winter time, you gotta, all this fresh air has to be in there. So you're exhausting all the nice warm air. So we grab that heat and we spin it around in a wheel and it deposits that heat into the incoming air. So that you heat the outside cold air and it reverses in the summer. Hot air is being brought in and cooled by the cooling of our system as we exhaust our cold air out. And they're big. They're like 20 feet long. They look like a train. And if you go to the attic, which I think is a little farther down, there it is. This is our, this is the top of the elevator. This is our IT room. Where's the IT room?
Yeah, you have it right.
Yeah,
So if you-
Oh, there it is, right there. And that's their access to it. And there's gonna be a ladder. It doesn't show right now up to a roof hatch. Or it shows up at the ceiling on the roof plan if you go down a little bit farther.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Oh, that's very good. Sorry.
There's the-
Well,
there's the
yeah.
stair.
Some
of my mark, that's it.
These are the solar tubes that light the multi-purpose room, which I'm not kidding, during the day, it's not even on a full moon, it lights the room. You can walk around as if it's,
Wow.
it lights
What's
up.
the diameter of those tubes?
They're 21 inches.
Oh.
And
You got it?
we use them we've been using them for years. Very effective.
We shocked at how much later I bring it.
Yeah. We actually, if we're really feeling generous, we try and put them in the bathrooms too. They're very, you don't have to turn the light on.
I think would be important for Ascos would be where the provisions were for, in the event that solar wants to come into this building. Years down the road is when where that provisions would be, because that's part of the code too, is the
Yeah,
location.
that's our big flat roof on it.
Right.
That's currently doesn't have any crack on
I'll mark my words, John.
Wait, it's flat, it's flat.
It'll be stuff.
it. Well, we have to, we can only go 34 feet high. So if we kept our nice, you would never see it. You'll never see it.
It's not angled at all?
But
It's,
Oh, yeah.
Pitch.
Oh, okay.
Strains.
No, you go up like this
Flat.
and if you kept going, you'd
Snowstorm and there's like 4 feet of snow up there.
Said you had to shove it.
You're going up through the hatch.
yeah. No, we never get snow on our roofs. Go back down for.
I lived in a house.
Sorry,
No, I'm sorry.
you said down, I
thought we had a roof plan. Dan, I saw a roof plan somewhere. Way down?
You were on that roof plan.
No, that was the fuse. I mean,
Right after the attic.
I
is the
go,
roof
other
plan.
way.
2 by 12,
Crazy on
12 inch
Yeah,
size.
no, that's all right.
To go up there, shovel it.
You're looking good.
We had the.
You're looking good.
It's a lot of interior.
I had to shovel it, I just laughed at it. Didn't crack these.
Right there.
Just right off in the spring.
Look there it is. these are gonna be, there will be roof drains here, 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 and here. There'll be a roof hatch here with a ladder accessing the roof. And this roof could have solar panels, but I prefer solar being on the grade. You know, we got a lot of land around there, so, yeah.
Just to go back to the question that Bonnie brought up, is there a section through, so what is there
Yeah.
elevation, what's
Yeah.
what's the elevation change between the flat roof and the top of the pitch? Drop down,
Very low.
Oh, there's no parapet.
just
Yeah.
very tiny.
No
No,
parapets.
no.
We don't have
It's going right up and.
Yeah, in fact, there's a breather.
And for
Yeah.
some kind of a, what do you call it, detail comes out.
Where you're gonna have
We
asphalt.
turn the
to
rubber
your-
to the-
to your
yeah.
flat
Yeah,
roof at those
Yeah,
points.
we have a continuous vent at the edge. It's it's not custom, it's a standard unit that
Roof
we,
vent for the-
yeah, all the way along. If you go,
So what's it?
let's find it, let's find an elevation.
This would be like flat.
Okay.
Here, keep going, keep going.
The installation, the rigid installation on top, so there's a minimum of 3.5, and then it's tapered.
Hey, Dan, where's our elevations?
You look for building section?
Yeah, building elevations.
They're after the flood lines. Before, keep going. Exactly.
There we go. Go up a little bit, just a better other way. Yeah. Well, I can't see it here, but where this is our flat roof, this is the slope roof. If you're standing on the ground, you'll never know there's a flat roof up there.
Right.
But this edge right here is vented and,
I think building section will probably be the best.
Yeah.
Like one of those sections you got there.
way down.
Yes.
Farther.
Keep going.
This
Right there. Yeah, so up there at the top, where the
will be
flat,
vented all the way along here. These will be vented down here.
so there'll be no real wall, it's just gonna be like flat. I don't know.
It just goes. The detail works out really nicely.
Yeah.
And by the way, the roofs breathe. We use a 100 panel. So in order to get an R60 roof, we have 7 inches of closed cell foam. On top of that is a 100 panel, which has, I think, 3.5 inches of poly iso. And then on top of that is a 1 inch space with a panel above that. With spacers in it, allow that roof to breathe all the way up. So the roof is cold. And the interior is warm. And that's a 100 panel. And that's all of our slope roofs here, have that 100 panel on it. And our exterior walls are a zip R panel with 1 inch of insulation with 5.5 inches of closed cell foam. That gives you an R40 in the walls, R60 in the roof, R40 in the walls. So the whole idea is
So
that,
the walls are, it's a spray foam, basically.
yeah, closed cell.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is that in the roof, the building is ventilated and the roof systems are ventilated. So you don't have the moisture problem from that, and the closed cell keeps moisture from moving up through it. And the zip R panel is a breathable, the green panels you see on new buildings being built. The roof ones are orange. And all those details will happen during design development and construction drawings. But those are all being worked out now, and my cost estimator is familiar with all of those details. Since he's estimated for the last 45 years, he's done estimates. Is that enough for you?
Can you talk about one more thing?
I'm getting hoarse now.
Yeah, and you've done great. Thank you very much. The glass. Let's talk about the glass.
What about the glass?
Who's glass? Who makes
Sure,
sure?
right now, we're speccing a Pella, metal clad with wood interior. Low E, all the stuff that makes it extremely, energy efficient. They're all Energy Star. It doesn't mean they have to do Pella, we give them 3 options. Marvin, Pella, and whoever else.
Is it double
Double.
or triple?
Double.
Hey,
I don't, triple's way,
is that way too much?
well,
You don't need it.
you don't get anything out of it. There's some new ones out now that are much better. But we did Wellesley and triple. Just should have done the double beam. They wanted triple, we did Marvin triple beam. all our other projects have been. I think Wilbraham didn't end up being Pella because Pella was having problems with the supply chain issues. You
Down the street, we
can,
use Colby, which I had not much experience. with.
Wow.
Actually,
really nice.
they were nice.
I like Colby.
Yeah,
I do, big private houses.
it's a good question.
Canadian.
I think it's
Canadian?
Oh,
Make a good
Uh-oh.
got to cross the border, forget it. No, no, they're,
I thought they readjusted all those.
yeah, they're moving around like,
By the time we get done, we.
like a snake, you know, through the grass. Yeah, we spec it around a pellet, metal clad, no matter who it is, it's gonna be metal clad.
Metal clad, okay.
We stay away from vinyl because vinyl is a little bit like PVAs, the solar panels, they have a limited life. Vinyl eventually breaks down, they put all kinds of stuff in to keep the ultraviolet light, but I always like to point out the vinyl side of buildings in about 25 years, some kid throws a ball against it.
5 years, 1 year.
Well, really cheap
Hockey
crap.
pucks do a good job.
Yeah. So this is, and our siding right now is spec'd around Hardy. Cement, but there's other manufacturers, Certainty, and then all of our trim work, we spec, we used to call it, no, I don't touch that with a 20-foot junk, old junk.
What's junk?
It's so the plastic, is that.
You just heat it in the summer, my house has it. In the winter, I got gaps like this, and in the summer, they're tight as a drum, and they have to be cut at an angle, and glued and screwed. But we use something called Burrell, which has been bought by somebody called True Trim or something. But it's a poly cement type thing. It can be routed and shaped, and it doesn't expand, contract, pick up moisture, comes pre-finished as a prime, painted to match. And we've been using it now for ever since Holyoke, for some of my 20-foot AZACs where we had to put special things that allow it to move in and out. On small projects, that's all we used for years, AZAC. It's pretty expensive and it's not very environmentally friendly, it's plastic. So there,
Very good.
take that.
Thank you, John, and.
Okay, you're
for all
welcome.
your
We're running
work on
probably
this.
too much time.
All right.
Shut 'em up.
I wanna just, Ms. Chair.
Yes.
John, can you just keep following up on the requirement to go for possibly 800 amps to 1200? That's a 50% increase.
Oh, I think it's horrible.
So
When
we
she
need to
told me
really
that,
know what's going on.
yeah,
I mean,
well, it's the state of
coming back and said,
Massachusetts.
We're gonna build an energy efficient building and make you have to build it all electric, therefore it's gonna cost you another $100,000.
I don't know. We're working with her right now. She broke that news to us the other day. I don't know whether Littleton had that. I don't think that was in effect when they got their permit. It's now in effect. And she said, she's really good. She's worked with us for a long time. She sent it over and said, John, you read it. And I handed it to Dan and said, you read it. We're working on that right now. I think by Monday, Tuesday, we'll have it figured out. It just arrived on our table Monday, I think.
And I think a question also might be is if the intention is to go for the electric in the kitchen, if that's a breaking point on that decision of stepping up, that might weigh heavily on the decision.
Yeah. Also, to be honest with you, the electric stove and the induction is a lot more expensive than the gas. And we would do gas with electronic starts.
We have to, again, this.
No.
Open pilot.
No,
Those have to have the push buttons.
My contract dumped and somehow slipped through the things in Wilbraham. They're pilots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Don't take a chance on it.
and I think
No.
you can get away.
And the
with it.
problem with pilots is that it keeps tripping your CO detector. And I said, well, why does it do that? Because it creates CO. Not in great amounts, but
One of the school,
No.
some school classification, we put in a product in Germany and they just rip it out and throw it away.
yeah, no, we were well on that. Yeah, that's a good point. But we're getting down about that. Now, I asked my cost estimators, he's current on everything, so let's see what he's talking about. And the kitchen designer, we're looking to work with Boston, what do they call Boston? Yeah, Boston Showcase. They have an engineering division. And
So you haven't settled on a kitchen supply, a designer or supplier
Yes, the designer of Boston Showcase.
yet?
Now, the supplier will be the contractor. And by the way, again, it's spec with it's almost always a Carlin stove. The hood is in our base bid, not in the kitchen bid. We already bought the refrigerator, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's
They-
it.
Yeah, it's gonna move over.
That's it.
Hmm.
That's small.
That's what he said.
That's it.
That's
Yeah, we have
all you
we
need?
have a freezer, separate freezer, and some of the bigger, this is not a very big center. Bigger centers will sometimes do a pair of those. You go look inside it. A lot of people.
Worked in commercial kitchens my
Yeah.
entire life, so.
God bless you, you're tough to diet.
I'm used to feeding 1,600 people in an hour for lunch.
Where's the burn blisters on the scars?
No,
No, you're careful.
No, I used to work with a guy who could unload the sheet pans out of the oven barehanded. He would go with that, put them in the rack. He did working so long.
No.
Speaking of electric work, we're supposed to get, when we satisfied with the response that we got from
From the
National Grid on the rebate.
So we received what we were getting per rebate based on a square footage cost at the beginning of the project and also at the end. But then they also have a calculation based upon the tonnage, which we may need some input from our mechanical.
We'll have that soon.
So that's another component of that. And we can come up with a rough order of magnitude about what we think the kickback come from the utility company. I think we're going to be in a situation where, okay, here's our kickback. Here's our upcharge on the end, and we may be in a situation where we say this.
Not necessarily just the cost of buying the equipment, but running all electric is. Now, in Wilbraham, the senior center pays no electric bill. Even though it's fairly hefty, and the reason for that is because the town has a big PVA array somewhere. And they kick the electricity back into the grid and they'll get a credit for that. Maybe someday you'll do that. But I can tell you right now, that rebate would be helpful, Brian.
Yes,
And,
and John, what was the name of the range that you guys like Boston?
Garland usually does it. They get 3 choices in our spec. I can't remember all the other ones.
Yeah, so we had Boston Showcase down the street as well. They used the Vulcan
Vulcan is another.
48-inch electric range. That was 48.
Yeah.
Trying to get a breakdown of what we got.
And the size of the range is based on the probable maximum number of meals to be served at any
Well,
one given time.
We go with one of the larger ones. We go with one that you can also drop in a grill. You know, so you can do pancakes Saturdays or whatever. Saturdays, you want to work Saturdays.
Sure.
But I think it's an 8 burner, of which you drop the grill in. To uses up 4 burners or something. I think that's what it is. It's double ovens down below. And then you have your convection grids, which are double right now stacked.
Mhm.
One of the problems with the National Grid program is that they pay at the very end, right? They don't give you a fund.
There is an
Do
initial,
everything that
yes, and there's also, at some point, sometimes they have an engineering check that they want to review on that as well, which comes at a cost. I think they split the cost with you on that.
In the old days, you used to pay the architect. to do it.
Yeah, right.
You know.
But yes, mostly the rebates do come at the end. It's something that you can't plan for. In the.
You won't even know what they really are.
That's the
Well,
problem.
you know, after the governor's, proposal, some of those may be going away.
They try to take that, some of the 3 billion that they've got in Mass Aid that they can't give away fast enough. Or 5 billion. They've been collecting for 25 to 30 years and since then.
We could use it.
Have to advertise so hard to get people to use it, but still they can't get it away. Yeah, we could use that. We could get a chunk of that.
But I got it. Well,
That was excellent.
that's kind of me and Dan on the drawing. Dan's been doing all the drawings. He's been having a lot of fun. We have Kelly in our office is working on the window door schedules. Which we really don't need in detail, but she'll be doing that. And the lighting schedule will be in there too.
So I had one question.
I was saying, anything else before, just for the sake of keeping it going?
One more question to John.
Okay.
I think it's kind of important.
I shouldn't be sitting.
Is there a sequence in the process when we do anything called value engineering? Or do we do
Oh,
that
yeah.
way into the design?
Oh, no, when we get the cost estimates in, there's gonna be a lot of adjustments that you will all make together. It'll be your call on it, but let's say we think it's 10 million and it comes in at 13 million. We have to start looking, now we have ad alternates that we're gonna have in the deal. And we're trying to stay within about 6 max. But, you know, maybe the stone base will go away, you know.
Okay, so there is a process.
Yeah.
That's my, if that question will come on.
Generator
Someone's gonna
might-
ask us,
Yeah.
are you doing any value engineering when you do this process? Or you just,
The whole project is value.
well, I know, I'm trying to value engineer it, but, you know.
I'm just gonna bet lots of money.
Well, actually, it'd be great. My fee is very flexible, just keep adding money to it and it'll.
We're gonna cut it. It's gonna be part of the value engineering.
Yeah, I know. Anyhow, that's where we are right now, and again, this is our check set. Dan and I both been bleeding over it with little red sketches and markups. And things like Dan's found that the couple columns are in the way, you know, our engineer will get straightened out on that. Plus, we're working in Revit, so they'll have a model. So this time we're gonna look really closely at that steel model because, oh, it's looking really good now. In Wilbraham, they stuck a beam right 8 inches into our window wall in the multi-purpose room, which was. I hate to find that out when we're building the right things.
In the interest of time, can we move to?
Yeah.
Site updates and
Yeah, let's go.
see where,
I'm done.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Good to go.
All right, yes.
This is a good minute.
that's
what-
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on, so I was like, I gotta. Like. You
You don't wanna get blamed later.
Yeah, so hopefully y'all get to read the memo. So basically I gave an update on the offsite utilities, the seismic evaluation, which we already heard about. McPherson and Bishop Road jurisdiction. MIPA and natural heritage. So first thing, offsite utilities, the water main. So we're continuing with the permitting with Pan Am, with the road, railroad. And at the same time, Matt's putting together the housing choice grant application, so that's for up to 500,000.
We're using, but we're going again. And we've worked together with Katie and Alicia on that.
and the money for that would go to help, the cost of the water design?
Yeah, the water construction, yeah. So, you know, right now, I think the SB.
Not the design, the construction.
It's not
The
designed.
design is done by DPW.
Yeah.
For free.
Everything's free over there.
Good, good man, over slave, no. So yeah, so that's, it'll go to the construction of the one. So for that, though, the committee should write a letter of support to, you know, attach to that submission of the grant application. Because the more letters of support we get, the better. So
Would we get one from the select board?
we are planning to get one from the select.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to vote to write that letter? Does anyone want to volunteer to write it?
I think Ken does, doesn't he?
Maybe we'll ask them.
Yeah, and we've done this for many grants before, so I'm
Yep.
sure we have a template
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's gonna be a template, something.
Yeah. Steel one. Like, yeah,
I'll try, and then somebody can edit.
all right, I could find you
Just give me
something,
10.
but then, yeah, I think we'll need a vote just to. Create that letter and provide it. Or
So they're gonna motion that you apply. It's their
500,
discretion.
it's the 500,000, yeah, and then they have discretion to give you less.
And to whom is the letter addressed?
Alicia.
The housing,
It's the one-stop
Housing,
grant, yeah.
We got.
it's a housing
You already
choice
did one.
Got one.
grant,
Already
so,
did one, so you do it.
Yeah.
What person, what office, what?
it's in the one stop where it
Yeah.
Same
all that
as-
information.
Just say the housing choice agreement and one stop for community growth program.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alicia
Alright.
has a bunch of those letters as well from all the.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Everybody here.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So we get a motion to,
I move that we write a letter of support for the housing choice code.
second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Great, wonderful.
Okay, too good. Alright, so that's water main, still moving.
But
Electric,
does everyone understand that that's the maximum amount of 500,000? We're not looking for, that's the maximum.
right, we're aiming for that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure we were gonna cut that.
Up to 500.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna apply for them.
Right.
So.
Right, and we're still unclear whether we could get the cost is 700,000, we could get the 500,000, or whether we're only entitled to the 200,000 that is up to the total 500,000, because the 300,000 we're using right now is the same grant, housing choice grant. But we're asking,
Yeah, we're gonna ask for the full
amount.
5. Maybe they only give us the 2, but from Alicia's conversations with the grant
Mhm.
people, it sounds like they want to use them. So
Great.
ask for it all.
Yeah.
We'll figure it all.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, and Ken, feel free to chime in, and others who have been part of this too. It's Electric and Comcast, so. We had a meeting with them May 2nd, had Grid and Comcast both on the call. And we talked, we should, had a map up, and we're talking, explaining the project, potential pathways to bring electricity and to bring Comcast to the site. And so kind of the two potential ways are to come down the corridor, kind of like the water mains coming down Bishop Road. And bring electric and Comcast that way. And the other way is really for electric to tie in on, so there's a high tension power line that runs down cuts through the DPW site. So you can actually tap off of that with a transformer and go to the site. I don't have to be a little clear.
Yeah, it makes it-
So there's pros and cons to both. I sort of listed them in here, and National Grid. It really, it wasn't coming down Bishop Road. It's not a deal breaker, but there was a lot more hurdles they had permitting with FAA, which seems kind of odd because the airport is not being used as an airport. The railroad crossing, of course, natural heritage, and one thing as well was, and I'll get into it in a later item, is the McPherson Road, Bishop Road. It's really Bishop Road now, we know. It is part of the jurisdiction, Mass Development has jurisdiction there, so National Grid will need consent, a legal agreement with Mass Development to let them through. So that stuff just takes time. Mass Development's already indicated to us they're okay with that. One good thing we did learn was the town can basically do the construction, do the installation of the conduit. And as, like, if we're, say, for example, we're doing the water main job at the same time, do the same contractor, put in all the conduit for Comcast and electric. And it just gets inspected, it gets designed by National Grid and Comcast. So I thought, like, that's if we go underground, go overhead, that's a different story. But I didn't know we were allowed to do that, so there could be potential cost savings there, we learned that. So the Comcast is, the best way to connect Comcast really is coming down Bishop Road, because if we have to go from the site, I wasn't even clear as to where they pull it, where it pulls, where they start from, and then they were concerned about having to go under the high tension wires. There's just more red tape as you do that, and you have to have an easement under the high tension wires, the process.
So they're gonna go this way.
So that was kind of a big concern with Comcast. So long story short, that was May 2nd. I did just actually, I had an email while we were here from National Grid. There's a meeting scheduled for May 22nd to discuss alternatives. After some, the alternatives they've come up with based on review from some documentation Ken and I put together that came out of our first meeting. So we're still working with Grid and Comcast to kind of find what's the best solution, what's the best way to do this. Anything to add, Ken?
I would add only drama. Dan was very nice in what he said. It was very, very disappointing here at National Grid came out and said at the beginning of the meeting We spent the first 15 to 20 minutes determining that in fact, the land was in the town of Ayer and it was in their service area. When they came on the board, they used the Google Maps, it's fascinating, Google Maps shows that land is still within Devon's, our land. So the first thing they had was incorrect documents, they were totally unprepared to even assume they could put the power down the street. So it was very disappointing, then the FAA thing and the railroad, it went on and on and on.
Yeah.
Lastly, they got to the fact that the lines that go through the DPW could be a very clean alternative than the solution.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that's where it ends up.
And we actually
be like
tap
right
off
here,
those
right?
lanes to our wastewater.
Right, so in the process of doing it, so they asked us to provide them with plans of how, if we thought we could get it from the transmission lines to the site, which I did. And a bunch of photographs with text. Photographs for the potential connection to the line, photographs for the potential location of the transformer. Drawings that we send over that show how to get from the lines to the site, through the gravel road that's there.
Yeah,
And
deeper, those are,
anyway, that was what we sent. Since then, you know, it looks like we have a follow-up meeting, so. It could be a big deal if they say they can get off those lines. So in the process of doing the site walk with Dan. What we actually discovered, I think we discovered it, wasn't clear. That the sewer treatment plant that's there is being fed off the same exact lines that we would prefer to use for the senior center. So they currently have an account off the same lines. And it turns out these are not typical transmission lines. There's 3 sets of lines in the easement. 2 of them are typical small versions of transmission lines. The 3rd set is more like you'd see going down a regular street.
Yeah.
That's the set of lines we're asking.
Tap off.
Tap off.
Yeah.
So they have a current 3-phase power connection to those lines.
Do we
To
determine?
transform that, transform, run the sewer treatment plant. And what was really kind of confusing to me, and maybe I got a little too deep in it. When I first got
Yeah,
down there and walked the site, I saw underground go into the sewer treatment plant. If you clarified and said there were some issues with the underground over the years or something, so they connected to the lines. So we now have a very valid case with photographs showing them what's going on. We just need a site visit and hopefully we'll get a result. Details of cops down the street. We could do the trenching on our own, but it's got a lot to it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
this way.
And from an optimistic standpoint, you have your next meeting, do they give any set of timetable for when they can mobilize or what, you know, what they perceive, what their usual processes for engineering on their end?
I think we're still kind of too high level because we're figuring out, do they have to do right of way, legal work with mass development, stuff like that. So we're still trying to have the total scope and then we'll go, all right, here's where we are. But if it were to come off a DPW property, that would be the quickest way from probably red tape.
we'll wrap, we're gonna continue working after June. We have plenty of stuff to do. Yeah. So we'll work through June and July, but by July, they should have good direction from us, and then we've got to get through town meeting and the vote. Which will be, what's our estimate if it all goes favorably? October.
27th, yeah.
So we have some time, and I think what needs to happen is we need to start lighting the fire under them.
We have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And give them, because they're notorious, as Brian's pointing out, it's just.
We actually do not make
biggest-
it any easier than it is right now. So
Yeah, it looks very
they
positive.
should be pretty much in a no back chat situation. It's very close. There's almost no way that it doesn't work. Engineering wise, I don't know, we should have to draw it up.
Good, we could put all that money into our project then.
We're hoping this works.
Yeah, we'll see. Very good news on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that there may be broadband grants for bringing, bringing broadband to unserved or underserved locations. And because our location is obviously not served, I think Comcast may have grants available.
Maybe required to do it.
To bring broadband to that location, which doesn't currently exist.
That was one of the statements that National Grid made after they determined that, yes, the land is in the town of Ayer, and yes, it's in our service area. Yes, we do have an obligation to provide you power. You are a customer.
Yeah.
So that's what they said.
Well, Comcast brought, they brought fiber out to my island.
I thought that, well, for
Fiber. Have to.
Proud of you that you did, Terry.
Guy said FAA, I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Don't blame me, I suppose they race cars over there.
Sometimes you might have to.
Land of planes.
Well, we still had, when the shoulder was up, we still had the helicopters that were active over there.
It's coming, so we hope it's close.
All right,
All right.
next up, seismic analysis. I think we already know what's happened there. We reclassified to class D.
Yeah.
Move on. Okay. McPherson Road, Bishop Road jurisdiction. So I communicated with Mass Development Engineering. This time I talked to the chief engineer. I'd worked with him several months ago on this, but basically, long story short, what we've learned is that, and you can see it in the diagram on my memo. Bishop Road, it's called in Devon's, goes from the gate to a point 400 feet west of where the brush dump gate is now. You can see where the arrow bound is here. And basically that 400 foot, that limit is the Oxbow National Wildlife. So Devon's has jurisdiction there. When you get into the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has jurisdiction, and that's called McPherson Road. So as you head further down toward the Natural River. And Mass Development has a right of way and a utility easement through there for their roadway and their utilities. So we got clarification finally. So it is called Bishop Road throughout that section. Mass Development has jurisdiction in the section where we would be doing any of our work down the corridor. So we have to work with them to bring water main down, but that was a long time coming, but yeah, we got some clarity there.
And the movement of moving the gate, physically moving the gate is.
Yes. So I reached out and I hadn't heard back. I reached out last week. Because there was gonna be a meeting with Oxbow about a month or so ago now, and they canceled it, and then I hadn't heard anything, so I reached back out to Devon's and didn't hear, so I gotta follow up on that.
The plan would be to still move the gate to the triangle.
Yeah,
Let's go
it's
get to them.
getting hashed out, so yeah, so it will at least move to this point 400 feet west of the brush dump gate. There'd at least be the gate moved down to there. The hope is, let's just put a gate down at the triangle, one gate be done. Optionally, there could be two gates.
But it would just make the turn, if somebody does happen to go down that way, it would just make the turnaround a lot
Exactly.
easier.
Right.
Most strangers closed that the other day. They never put a sign at the front of the street or anything. Just close it. That's it. You take a right
Yeah.
turn, it's closed. Yeah. Turn around, go back.
That'd be part of what, if the gate moves, there would be a sign down at Park and Bishop. Okay.
I'll give you the phone stuff.
Yeah, now, it's like MEPA permitting, so again, feel free to kick in, Ken. So Ken and I met, on the Teams meeting virtually with, two employees from MEPA, the permitting office, Kate Larson and Jennifer Hughes. And quickly in a summary of bullet points here, we did learn an EIR, environmental impact report is required, so that, what that does, it adds a lot of work to this permit. We did learn you can technically petition the secretary to exempt a geographic area from the environmental justice area that's laid out. And based on conversations with them, it's probably like a non-starter. If we went down this road, it would be very challenging to play some kind of political game. But, we learned that the environmental justice, the way it's laid out is it's by census blocks. And so that's why this non-populated area is really part of it. The block traverses over that, over the area where our proposed site is, even though there's no population there. So unfortunately, that's just the way it gets laid out. It's the way they do environmental justice, so we can't really change it.
The US Census Bureau set these blocks up years ago.
Yeah.
And they just did. And there's no challenging it. They just sit there on a map. And interestingly enough, they only follow a few places in the state of Massachusetts, it happens to be one.
Yeah.
Because of some history, you know, in the town of Ayer, some population, some environmental issue that happened in the past, whatever.
So that the environmental justice, that's us being in that area, the site, that's what's driving the EIR requirement. So we did learn that there is kind of a streamlined permitting process that can be done. Because typically the way it works with MEPR is you submit what's called an ENF, environmental notification form. And then it goes out to public review and comment, and then the secretary writes you a letter and would tell you, okay, now you have to submit an EIR because you're an environmental justice. So then you start another permit process, send in an EIR, go through the whole thing again. So this way, basically you bundle the two together in one submission. So they call it an ENF and a proposed EIR. So that's basically what we're being told we should and have to do, and then that is what we should do. You know, we are still kind of working this out. The other thing is there's advanced notification requirements for an environmental justice community. It's in 45 days, between 45 and 90 days prior to your submission, you have to have done certain outreach items and potentially in different languages. It's pretty.
I was looking at that though
Yeah.
today. I was trying to make sense of those layers. It doesn't look like we're in an area that requires a language
I think
accommodation.
I looked and we aren't, but we are 1 mile, we are within a mile of an area that. It's just
okay.
open that forever, surely.
What's the other language? Mandarin Chinese or something?
But
I don't remember.
yeah,
We don't live with your own.
So anyways,
Yeah.
so there's, you know, just adds this layer, lots of red tape, lots of work.
One thing that would come up that we commented about, public outreach was the fact that I said we've had 14 meetings, right? It's close to
but
15
yeah,
meetings.
it was,
Right.
yeah.
We've had, so I did mention that we've been out to the public, we've been at events, you know, we've been at so forth and so on. We said, oh, that's good.
And I
So
have
we
a
probably
list.
will have, you know.
I have a list of
probably
all
be
those,
listing that as part of this. But in addition to that, there's notifications.
Right.
So can.
How would you go about pinning down that timeline for when the public forum or the public hearing or the public meeting would have to occur in order for the application to proceed? I mean, I think it would be good for us to know, you know, 45 days before you submit this, you need to have a public hearing, which notifies everybody that we first
No,
have.
it's
Sorry, happened.
Yeah,
it's a little more to it than that.
yeah,
The notification they're talking about. Could be wrong. It's part of a process that notifies people. Adjoining towns, different populations, you know, and so forth and so on, posting here and there.
Yes.
So it's a process that the consultant typically would help you
right.
do
Yeah.
and then
But
go.
I
And
think
then,
it would be good for us to have that timeline laid out so that as we approach, you know, midsummer or as this process moves forward, we know what the deadline getting.
Yeah, I did look at that, and so the drop dead date to submit the bundled package with EANF and EIR. There's September 2nd due date. To what's called the environmental monitor, that's where it gets posted publicly for anyone to comment. But that's September 2nd. And then what would happen is it would sit in the environmental monitor, and then on October 17th. We would get our letter from the secretary saying blessing us or cursing us. Be blessing. That's the latest possible submission. So if you back out from there, you submit what's called the environmental justice screening form, and that's the form for the outreach by July 19th. So I talked to it's kind of in my last paragraph, I was working with one of my environmental consultants, just feeling out this process, and you know, she was saying it's probably about 1 to 2 months of work for a consultant, and very ballpark estimate, 30 to 40 grand, depends how much outreach.
Yeah.
We need to do, so pretty significant process, MEPA did give us an example, ENF and EIR, and I looked at them, like, but EIR is just, it's a huge dog, it's a lot.
I know it is.
We did that, so I asked around my office for any of the experience and what they've gone through, and
Yeah, I
they've
did
recently
too.
done it, but
Yeah.
positive is that. From his experience, MEPA is very rigid with their time and they're like clockwork with their responses, and so you can expect when they tell you, you're going to either get your comments back or you're gonna get blessed by the date that they tell you. So from a schedule wise, that helps, like so that you're not waiting for something. The other being the EIR itself, the one I looked at was well over 150 pages.
There are 500 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Appendix. We had to do one,
It's
probably 20 years ago, we did something like that. We did, a consultant.
Yeah, so I think it kind of at this point, we're still actively kind of trying to determine the best way to proceed here and what we do. But you know, I know Katie, you have been carrying, I think up to 50 grand in our budget. Or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah,
That's the question that
I do have an update on that. We can talk about that as well.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I asked the folks who were meeting was. Is there any way you can do this process without a consultant? That's what I asked basically. And the possibility is, and Dan's reviewed some of it, is that we can do the expanded ENFP, that part of the process
Yeah.
ourselves. And around this table, we have enough people that can help us fill that form out. But we definitely cannot do EIR. Now, they said, yeah, it's been done before, but it's very rare. So in any event, there's gonna be a consultant involved.
Yeah, so we may be able to piecemeal it to try to save some money. but I mean,
Or just call it
talk with
chat
consultant, yeah.
AI.
She said she'll give us examples, they'll provide us some information. A lot of
Right.
the enhanced, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of check boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
to
it's
fill in.
very similar to the ENF, which I've
So-
done those before. We've done them in my office, but
So today, Dan talked to consultant or two. I made another call today, which I told Dan about, to Omni Environmental, who did our phase one. So if you go back to the Omni Environmental Phase One report, which we have on our website, that was a pretty comprehensive report. In other words, they went pretty deep already in the phase one. So I'm hopeful that Omni will get back to Dan.
I did talk to
Oh,
him
you did?
today. He said he hasn't done one in about 5 years, so they
Oh.
don't do them often, so it wasn't, you know, as good to hear, but.
Did you get the contacts that I had sent over?
I did, I didn't reach out to
See,
them.
that's another option that we
Yeah.
can get, just to kind of, because they're coming off of doing the one that was in Hopkinton.
Yeah.
Just in the past few months.
Yeah, so I mean, that'll be like the consideration, or when we go to do this, somebody says shop around.
Right.
And the other name I heard was Epsilon.
Yeah.
I talked to Daniel Ruiz, our town planner. He has experience with this too. And he said Epsilon was a good firm that he had worked with in his firm when he was working in the private sector.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put out an RFP.
But
But we can, now we can get.
It's over 10 grand. Isn't there a requirement?
The
Consultants
town manager
now.
has some flexibility.
Yeah.
Good consultants now, we can,
That's right.
give a brief scope to each of them and they can give us a price.
I'll forward.
Where did the proposed, yeah, come from?
What's that?
What town, the proposed form that they're.
Oh,
Yeah.
the one they gave us though.
Redford?
And it wasn't the best of examples, but if you go,
I'm just curious.
I could show you on the environmental monitor, there's several submissions of this bundled package you can find, but they showed us more. Yeah,
So I tried to use the logic which we talked about at the table, that, you know, this is a project that benefits the environmental justice community. It's a big improvement for the town. It's a municipal project. We're doing the best we can. We've done everything we had to this point in time. Oh, okay, that's good.
yeah, basically, who were we were meeting with, it was a
So the fact that we've done
pre-filing.
everything well will help us eventually, but the procedure. Because the example she used was, you know, that's all good, and, there's this will never get a denial, is what I'm getting at. It'll never be denied.
Just gotta go
It's
through.
just a process.
Yeah.
And you end up with the conditions and you end up with the, you know, the oversight. Some of the questions she asked is an electric building. We have to look at climate change. Traffic, probably, she said, will be excluded because we don't have a traffic situation. We're not creating a real big traffic situation. It goes on and on.
Yeah, there's a lot
Right.
So
To
there's
look at.
to look at.
probably things that you don't have to totally fill out because it's kind of mute.
Well, you're gonna check them off.
You gotta check it.
Yeah,
You're not
yeah.
gonna
Fill it out.
NA.
She said, yeah, it's a type of project that's a benefit. We understand all that. And, you know, they'll never, for that,
So
you're not
we
gonna
got-
get denied. But
So we have September 2nd.
we have to do this immediately.
Yeah, it's something started.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So that's the way I would,
This is
Um,
the first part, which was the notification. She said do it right away.
yeah, so, you know, and, I think kind of preface to who we met with, it was a pre-filing
this, meeting, and we're basically meeting with permanent agents. We're not meeting with their bosses who have a lot more decision-making power. They're basically telling us, okay, here's how you're permanent. Oh, you wanted an exemption? Well, it probably wouldn't work. You have to talk to my boss. So we haven't, done anything like that, but based on what we heard from them, like I mentioned already, it doesn't seem like we'd be successful if we tried to wiggle our way out of the.
Didn't sound that way.
No, but yeah, I think more to come on that for now. Ken and I and Katie are gonna work with it with
Yep.
Robert as well. So they kind of figure out what's the best way to do forward.
Definitely.
To a place to buy anything.
Yeah.
And it all did from the other college that I have.
Okay. But this would require more funds, obviously.
When you're out there last, did you see the turtles?
I haven't, actually, I was recently, no.
Is this the turtle you're looking for? Because I found one on my
Landing.
property and I was,
Landing turtle.
I don't think it was a blanding.
The ones you see.
Mine looks like a snapper.
Common turtles everywhere.
Yeah, but he was in the middle of a 300-acre field with no water in it.
God bless.
Yeah,
There's a sheep, gonna put eggs on.
So I don't want babies being.
Okay,
I'll look at it, I know what it is if I can.
so MIPA. For now.
The snapper.
That's a stamp.
I moved them down by the river.
Endangered species, so we've been over this one a lot. I did communicate with Steve Ribberty, he's a contact over at Goddard, who's been helping us with natural heritage, he did the habitat
They're a
assessment.
good outfit.
Yeah, so basically the next steps, as he sees it, and this is kind of what we left off with natural heritage, was having a coordination with natural heritage, they were called MISA, Mass Endangered Species Act, they're the permitting group. So, we coordinate with them, and basically at this point, we could have an informal meeting, show them our current schematic design. And say, okay, what, how's this look?
Consider taking before we submit to you our permit application to try to avoid a take. And that's kind of where we left off with them. So that's really the next step as far as natural heritage. The next steps after that are the rare plant survey, which we can only do late July to August timeframe. And the Mesa, the actual filing of the permit with natural heritage. So I did leave a message with Steve and it wasn't clear yet on when. Can we just start filing this permit sooner rather than later? But I think we probably want to have a coordination meeting first. But that'll get the clock ticking on natural heritage. I think they have 90 days to give a response letter.
And it's naturally usually like an order of conditions that we come from that.
Yeah, usually, it'll say it's either, it says there's no take based on the way the design is and you're all set, or it says there'll be a prohibited take and here's your conditions. And it may say you need a conservation management permit, so, we've talked about that before, that's where we have to create a 2-to-1 land conservation, so 3 acres with 6 acres somewhere else in conservation. So hopefully we're not head down that road, but obviously that would be cost.
That's usually
So
for weather.
Very fun.
That's usually for weather.
This.
It's.
It's natural heritage, it's like, yeah, similar.
Does it require planting?
No, it requires placing an area of land in perpetuity conservation land, basically, like Article 97, pretty much.
I don't get it.
Because we're supposedly taking the habitat of the turtle.
But if, you're talking about turtle.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I thought you were talking
taking the
about
turtle's
blazing star,
habitat.
okay.
Oh, yeah, the blazing
So
star.
like if the plants are gone.
The plant's not that big a deal.
If we find them, we can move.
Okay,
them.
got
Yeah, the plants you
That's not a big.
Yeah, yeah.
transplant,
Yeah.
On his fee structure, what's his hourly rates? Does he have a separate thing?
Yeah, I don't, so I
Okay,
did
fine.
note here, I'm still negotiating with them.
Yeah.
Those are the two questions
Oh,
I
good.
had, but I think it might be, at this point, it might be, prudent to at least move forward with what is shown as task 2 on his list here, with the Mesa coordination, so we can get a meeting under with them with our current schematic design. And not, and
So final lawyers.
keep it moving on towards an hour, so heritage.
So as part of the coordinated schematic design, do we have, or we need to gain greater clarity into how that schematic design could help us avoid a take?
Right.
I think it was a misunderstanding. Our schematic design is drawn by Cat, is right, we're gonna show them.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna look at that and.
So you might want
They're
to
not gonna,
consider
it's
this.
just, they just don't. They can't imagine what we're doing in their mind, they have to see it, I guess, and say,
Yeah.
based on that, you know, you've got a big parking lot here. You know, that's gonna be impervious, and there's not gonna be any turtles in there, so is there some way other to run? They may come up with, they will definitely probably be order about some conditions, but they may even ask us to build a turtle nesting area, for instance. Somewhere.
That's in our
That's
original.
happened at Stratton.
Yeah, we could be there, they could say that, but it's good, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember the end of Wright Road, when they had to do that turtle mitigation because they found some, they found nesting sites in that area.
Oh, they call.
But it was in May. It was in the May, early June timeframe.
Yeah,
Not the fall.
the plant, the July, August thing is the plant, not the turtle.
Right.
Yeah,
But
Turtles are there.
turtle was in spring,
yeah,
so.
yeah, like right.
Over.
I mean, we have a good report.
That's their nesting time.
Right.
So I think we've, the original habitat assessment is what established that the turtles are there. I don't think we have to resurvey for the turtles, if that's what you're getting at with the timeline.
It's a
Yeah,
map
right.
location, it's already a
Yeah.
map location.
That's something, yeah.
It's a map.
Yeah.
Not
It's not a state.
physically on our site.
Yeah, so, right, so they're all around the site, so there's, the natural heritage is saying, well, they're gonna traverse across your site, you're gonna have a paved parking lot, and they get run over, so put in mitigation, like nesting site. Fencing, something they did in the past. stuff like
Yeah,
that.
temporary
Yeah.
protection during construction. Number.
What if we made the exercise room like the blanding exercise room as part of the vacation vision?
Put a big photograph.
With pictures of a turtle.
All right.
So, you know,
Do we want to, so your recommendation is that we go ahead and start the task 2?
that's what I would say,
Art.
at least can have is get at least an authorized task here, so we can have a meeting. With natural heritage, the Mesa folks, and start coordinating the schematic design.
And and we're comfortable with where we are in schematic design for the site plan to make that be
Oh, yeah,
productive.
you guys,
Yep.
it's pretty
Okay.
well developed now, yeah.
So before we do that, or is it, the last page in your packet was just the updated budget and for where we are right now, and you guys are taking that over for the bigger total project budget, but this is where we are right now. And this is just adding on to what we've had before. So as you know, there were 2 sources of funding. The blue area is the ARPA funds, and the sort of, I don't know what color that is, orangey tan, is the housing choice grant. And the way that the accounting office does it is it's like a negative number and then you spend it down to 0. So rather than spending up to the number, but so as you can see, we have spent all of the ARPA funds. We had 300,000 in the housing choice grant. We have at the bottom of that orange section, 147,000 of that left. And then there is, for the green part, which is the UDAG funds, we have 14,998 left in that. That adds up to $162,018. We know that we have in the purple area, things we know we have are the $10,000, that is the last piece of John's bill. 103,000 and 32,000 left on the schematic design contracts with Vertex and Catlin. And then, so that's 145,000 of our 162. So we have 16,000 in the dark green. Is everyone following my math? Yeah. So there's $16,000 left unallocated at this point. So I would, and we have 5,000 of that sort of hanging out for railroad permit fees that, and then a potentially $3,000 more to David E. Ross for the final payment on the lot survey. So I suggest that's 8,000 of that 16,000. We have money for the $2,500 for the task 2. to start that today. Just wanted to walk everybody through. We do have that money. And then when I look at all the other things in the yellow area that are gonna come up between now and town meeting. And that's 125,000. If I subtract out that 16,000 that's left, that leaves us about 110,000 that we need to request if we're trying to get all the environmental permitting done before town meeting. Then we need to ask the select board for $110,000 probably of UDAG funds to get us from July 1, when our grant is over and we have spent the funds anyway, to the town meeting. So I have suggested that number, I have floated that number already, and there was no response of horror, to it. So we want to, so point one is I think we have money to authorize this, this first step. And the second one is, from that, we need to decide when we want to give an update to the select board so that we can make sure that we're getting the next installment of this money in time for the next tasks of these permits in time. Just keep.
So if the, Madam Chair, if I may, so if the select board or town administration were to say, why don't you wait until after town meeting to pursue the environmental permitting and all the rest of it? What would be our response to that?
So my suggestion would be that we want to get as far along the way as possible so that we would understand if there's a take and what the accommodations are, so that we can make accurate accommodations to the total project cost, so that we can take an accurate cost to town meeting. That would be my argument for why we should continue to do it in the interim. Because like we said, it's not going to be it's not you can't do this. It's a matter of going through the process of the permitting and what accommodations would be necessary.
The natural heritage one is the wild card. It's more unknown. Are we gonna have to do a conservation management permit or not? But that's gonna be pretty straightforward, basically checking a box. It's gonna, I don't foresee any issues there, but you wanna have them as much done as you can before you go to town meeting.
Well, but I would also suggest that from town meeting to actually bidding, it's lots of months, but they're winter months. So whatever you need to do that needs to be done, the better weather needs to be done, but you have plenty of time to get our permitting.
Yeah, so I think that is a consideration.
Don't feel overly pressed, right? Like EIR could be, or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
That could be done. Great, and you'll have money available from the town meeting.
Have it done before town meeting, that meet, but even though we're confident.
Right.
It would be nice to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then notate, you can get a certificate.
That one, I think we definitely get it.
And then what it would take to get a note. Oh, yeah, that's what that. I think to use this example, for solar two, that's.
By the way, our money is 5,000.
So furniture, and then people roads.
Perfect.
So
I will fix that.
So
Although I don't.
You're like, I'll take that.
Katie as well, once the 1,163 is spent, then there's no other restrictions on what you have here for this entire budget, right? Because we're also tracking this separately.
Right.
On another budget that we have, as
Yeah.
kind of our running budget that we use, and then anything that gets asked or awarded via grants will also kind of get.
Great. Be happy to turn this task totally over to you. That would be great. Yeah, so the 1,163 is all that's left of the housing choice grant that, and we'll spend it tonight if we authorize this. But then the remainder of the UDAG funds, that there's no expiration date for that. And again, I think we're gonna spend it, but there's no deadline for that. So what do we think? Do we want to go ahead and authorize this task two for $2,400 with the NISA coordination?
Well, this one, is that one the first one they authorized?
That one I have
Yes.
saved. It's down here, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to authorize task two, Mesa coordination, not to exceed $2,400 estimated hourly, task for the, Goddard consultant.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Sorry.
Chair says aye. Wonderful.
So, just for clarification, should have thought about for the vote. We're also authorizing Dan to be the signature for that. Proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Dan, so much. This is, I know, a lot of work and related to this
Yeah.
site and.
Taking off, I'm still.
Yeah, and thank you for the, for all that work with National Grid too.
You're working again.
All right.
So different when you can't yell at people on the other end of the phone, and say, just get the freaking thing done. That's the way the public sector works, the private sector works.
Do we have a sense of, when we might want to go to the select board and ask for something in the neighborhood of $100,000? We,
Yeah, I think we're just to, yeah.
That's just gonna be nuts. Why is being nuts? Goodbye, guys.
All right.
See you, Brian.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wait. Bye, Brian.
I don't think this is working right now. It's temperamental. Okay, so before we get to that, do we want to go through the latest total project costs and then we'll have all the pieces with which to decide that. I've got that, I have a note for that, Dennis, under our next meeting piece. So. All right.
Sorry, I definitely didn't hear you.
Oh, no, but we're ready for
Oh,
you
good.
now.
And I know with the, where we are in time, I just wanted to get this out to the committee, kind of show you what the framework is that we're working on from a total project budget. We've taken what Katie has given us with what we're calling pre-town meeting budget, and we're running that separately, but we know that we're gonna need to start fleshing out the total project budget for our ask at town meeting. There has not been much change. We've taken some numbers that the IT department has given us, based upon some of the low voltage and some of the systems that are gonna be going in the building, some audio visual capabilities, some of the security and access control that's going to be needed. We started putting in some placeholders for that. We also have some placeholders in here, based upon other soft costs, that would be project management fees. We have the fees for Catlin for their construction administration and closeout that we've entered in here. But then we've also populated some items in here that we want to make sure that we're covered for things like, need for permitting, any geotechnical services, procurement for furniture and fixtures. As this grows and we start making other iterations, I'll be prepared and I'll come with some larger fonts and larger letters. The biggest thing that we're waiting on is going to be the cost estimate, and that's going to be the biggest driver of this total project budget. It drives our contingency numbers, but also gives us our square foot cost. The numbers that I'm using are based upon kind of where we are in the market and what we're seeing for bids that have been received on similar projects today, right now. So I took it at $850 a square foot, what John's design is right now, and that's the number I have plugged in for where we're at. Once we receive that schematic design estimate, and whether or not we go for another one, that would be the number that we use here, and go forward with it. Other drivers of the cost that we're gonna be tracking down from once we receive the estimate up until when the warrant closes are going to be things like, working with Catlin for duration of what we feel is going to be the correct duration of construction on this. Is this a 14-month build? Is it a 16-month? That's going to play into construction administration costs for time. Other things we're going to need to narrow down on in their floor plans that they provided in the schematic do not have a furniture layout yet. And so we're going to be looking for some proposed furniture layouts, working with Katie about what's going to be needed in those offices, and then going out and getting some proposals. And so it's a hard bid. What I have here is pretty much a lump sum. Similar, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but it's similar to what we've used over in Littleton. We actually have the hard costs of what we went out and done. So things like furniture, fitness equipment, computers, networking software, things that's going to be procured by the owner that we have to have placeholders for. So don't be, and this is our exercise here is don't be alarmed at the number at the bottom here. These, we're trying to be conservative. We're trying to make sure we have things covered. And then on a monthly basis, we come through and we update this based upon any of the progress that we've had on the soft costs. So hope is, I have $850 in here. The hope is we are starting to see some with knock on wood without tariffs, we're starting to see some softening of the market and some hunger out there with some contractors, which is a good sign for projects. And we hope to see that trend continue. So this will be a document that we'll clean up on a monthly basis. We may hide some rows that are relevant, but we want to show kind of the evolution of where we started here all the way up until where we are in town meeting for our. So I anticipate putting on the agenda, maybe some specific sections in here as we meet in months future. And we really need to narrow down our FF&E search. This is what we've done here, and these are the costs that we have, and then we move on from there. So any questions on how this is formatted? And it's a 2-page document. I condensed everything into kind of larger descriptions, just from a, you can see where the buckets are at this point, and then the larger one is something that I use that I just wanted to be transparent and show everyone where I start from when putting together this budget. So.
I like it.
Yeah, that's
wonderful.
Good job. One question is, so we're still at like 16.7 mil. At what point, because remember we have Robert's memo. You know, the ask really should be around 10 million from town.
Right.
So, yeah, so there was about, I'm looking at Robert's memo now, it was about $2.1 million. It was, what, you know, what we'd have to try to take out of design.
Yeah.
So at what point do we start doing something out of design?
No, I think, I'd just like to amend that a little bit. It was $2 million out of the project, not necessarily out of the building alone. It's, we're trying to find $1.5 million.
Yeah, so- So Robert had
Everywhere.
16.6. And then he said 2 million from capital stabilization, 1.3 from the CDBG grant, 1 million from UGAG, 200,000 earmark, was kind of what he said, you know, this is all high level, or that's what when we do this, suddenly you're at 12.1 million, so. You can get a $10 million debt exclusion, I mean, you still, all right, when do we get another 2.1 million? It's kind of like when do we start hacking? So.
Well, so,
No schematic design before.
but if we get the 500,000 for the water design,
Water construction.
water,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
fine.
water construction, that was in the 1 million.
Carrying $1 million.
Right, so that's a big piece if we get it, and then, you know, we have to look for other grants. As part of, I have a meeting with Robert tomorrow morning, is where is the grant writing responsibility gonna lie? We are hiring a new, you know, economic and community development person, but is it reasonable to expect that that's gonna be their area of expertise? Like, I'm not sure where that position you know, I haven't followed the rehiring for that. Oh, no.
In that meeting, I think it was stated that Robert was open to hiring a specific grant writer for the purposes of pursuing grants for this project outside of the hiring of a full-time community and economic development person.
It's a bona fide statement that the town needs a grant writer all the time. Not just this project, so.
No, I don't, but just to be clear, that for the purposes of looking for money for us, it was clear to me that the town was open to hiring a grant writer for the express purpose of.
The statement was made that they were willing to hire a grant writer for the CDBG grant, not on an extended basis to write lots of grants over the duration of this project. So previously, Alan was in that role, sorry. Alan was in that role. I just haven't followed the hiring of the new person to know that they're gonna start in July 1. So I am just unclear whether that is the expectation that they would pick up and start doing that, because.
We can confirm that tomorrow.
Right, so my point is that I'm following up with the town manager to see where does the responsibility for that lie, because if it lies with this committee, then we need to start really dedicating a lot of time and effort to that, like developing a grant subcommittee. And if it is with the other person, then I need to start spending a lot of time with them.
So they're likely to be saving, I mean, given the redesign or the second look at how the electricity is getting to the site, are there likely to be savings off the original estimate of, I think it was $1 million with like a ballpark?
I don't know.
The answer to so. What's up? I don't want to answer that exclusively. I want to talk about all the utilities to the site, but, one of my concerns is that there's a lot of money in that. First of all, I'd like to comment on the fact that you're calling it Ken document.
Yeah.
Probably.
Our original Bible.
So that document for clarification was a document that I summarized from two previous Catlin buildings. I took the cost breakdown of those two, he provided it to me, the cost of two other buildings. And I summarized those costs, and that's what that came up to. Within that, and I'm presuming it's in your cap cost per square foot, of course, is the site costs as well, all the site costs. I really believe that this site is gonna generate a cost savings because of the type of material that's there. And the fact that it's gonna be a breeze to build the thing, everything is gonna be easy on the site. So I think we have money in the site aspect. And I'm very curious about how it's Fogarty, I guess it is, right? Is this guy estimates that site cost. So separately, I've got some ideas about what that is, and I think the savings here. Utility thing, just for clarification on the way you listed it here. You got it's your item 2125, but you call it out as utility company fees, but in my work, I called it out utilities being brought to the site.
Yes,
So it's
Yes.
not the fees from the company, it's the actual cost to bring them to the site.
that's correct.
So we basically have that down to, no sewer, because the sewer is gonna be on site and that's in the site contract.
Correct.
So in the original budgets, we had a possibility of sewer. So anyway, the 1,000,004 is what I carried. Vertex is now thinking we can do it for $1 million. I think we can get a savings there.
Well, but that doesn't leave us that much wiggle room though, because if we know the water's gonna be
It's not
700.
gonna be 700. It's gonna be bid and it's gonna come in under 700. Plus within the 700, didn't you say there's 100,000 for the development of the drainage, storm drainage? So it's max of 6 right now. There's 100 in there that's,
Okay,
so
But
I
when
think
we
it's gonna be lower
originally-
than that in the real world.
okay, so but
Based
when
on
we
unit
originally,
cost.
our 1.4 number included something up to $1 million for electric. But
Correct.
if water is 600 and we're only carrying $1 million now, we're even to meet this number, we're banking that the electrical is only 400. So I don't know that,
But I think I get worried that we're gonna go through schematic design, get the cost estimate, swing high,
yeah,
and then we're gonna be like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
We're like $2 million short, what are we
Right.
gonna do?
That's great.
So that, do we just take the schematic design, which has already kind of been done, and hack out some square footage?
So that was gonna be my thing, is,
No.
and a number that large of a bust, and if making up. You're not gonna make that savings out by changing finishes. At that point, you're talking programming and you're talking actually reducing. the
Yeah,
size.
so you're going back, I mean, it's 22 sheets now, it's kind of getting more
It'll be
to
60 sheets.
Yeah.
Well, the 16 million, is that? How new is that number? Because we were at 16 before, then we cut
In the same number.
200 square, we cut 200 square feet off the building, we cut the corner and squared it,
Yeah.
we do.
You just do a little, right, yeah.
But we had, I mean, substantial, I mean, we added quite a bit for the IT tech infrastructure, which was
Yes.
a relatively small placeholder. The furnishers and finishings also went up
yeah.
by a substantial chunk.
There's a lot of variable, a lot of flux, some savings here, maybe not there, just, should we be doing anything at this time? With our schematic design square footage, or do we just kind of go and then approach it afterwards?
Well, I think we approach it once we receive our. Get Fogarty, and what Fogarty does is he's gonna break that out by division, either meter format or CSI format.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be able to see what he's carrying on square footage cost from it. We could compare that to what you've done also, Ken, on previous estimates where you have that square footage by
Right, by
division.
division, yeah.
And I have those as well. And we can see if there's any red flags on it. And then we see what he brings also to the table for anything from a value perspective. And hopefully at that point, we have some other options here and we have some decisions that have been made on other grants that are coming through.
I mean, the other thing to, the meeting with the select, well, and the proposal that they wanted the bond somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million. But that's, I don't think, a hard number. That is, if it has to be 10, 8, or 11 perhaps because of X, Y, and Z. I mean, it's, so it's not, I don't think it's the case that they have told us you cannot borrow more than $10 million. It's almost like, this is kind of what we'd like you to shoot for. In an
It was,
I was gonna say, from that memo, it's the opinion of the town manager as to what would be, a successful debt exclusion at town meeting, no more than 10 million. It says a bit, but that you could.
it was driven by a thought that he brought in the treasurer involved, he brought in other
Right.
members of the town hall who were financially involved. And found out about our solid bond rating and things like that, so it didn't make it a financial hit to the credit worthiness of the town or its bond rating or anything else. So there was a lot kind of back in it.
Yeah,
It doesn't say it's an exclusive number to agree with you. It doesn't-
right, because, I mean, I think it's. Though I understand, and I think that the committee has been working in good faith in an effort to try to save the town money, and the amount of work that Dan, especially Dan and Ken and Katie have put in individually in Matt with the design. That amount of work has been already a tremendous cost savings to the town.
Didn't buy the land.
That's right, so, but I think it's important for the committee to maintain the integrity of the building, to maintain the integrity of the overall project. And not sacrifice that in the interest of trying to get something built. That is, I think that we have a good case to be made that for the reasons, that we can cite, this is what we think the building could cost, and it will be worth it to the town to invest in this much. Hopefully that will come in somewhere close to where the select board wants us to be. But, we'll see.
We had a lot of discussion, I don't know how much time we don't have, but we had a lot of discussion about this already. And when the original design came in, we talked about how to simplify it. But to back up what you said, anyone who's done construction knows if you take 100 feet out of that thing, you don't take $850 a square foot times 100. It's an incremental savings because the bulk of the building involves heavy HVAC, heavy electrical, heavy siding work, the whole component of. So you're down to try to shrink it. Your savings are not going to reflect the $850 a square foot times the number of square feet that you try to take out of it. And I think the valid point is that this committee has worked diligently to provide the right activity space for the seniors and the right shape of the building. We all agreed on that, as a committee. It's got to make it work somehow.
What was the size of Littleton that just got completed and the cost for that?
We were at 16.5 is the size, 16,500. We did a different delivery method. We went CM at risk on that project, so it does come at a little bit of a premium. Construction cost was around 14.1. Total project cost was 18.2.
It was a bigger building, a couple thousand square feet.
Yeah.
Something like that. Little building, yeah, as this will be.
Hope to see everyone tomorrow. The ribbon cutting.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh.
Who's gonna have the
1 o'clock, right?
What's that?
1 o'clock? Is that
1 o'clock, yeah.
right?
Yeah, so.
Okay.
This.
Yeah.
Great.
And obviously after that, if there's a real sticker shock or a gut check moment once we receive these numbers from Fogarty, I think we need to huddle up quickly and we need to make a decision on what we are, because as I'm showing here, we are trending in the right direction around the number that we were originally told, right? It was based upon this, but if things need to change, the sooner the better it is.
Well, and I think that's an important direction we need to take is when we have that $2 million gap, we thought we had addressed some of it already, but we'll have to see, are we going to try and change the project or are we going to try and change the funding? And I don't have a clear answer to that. So,
as a positive note, hopefully, we'll get the housing choice second round. I did hear verbally from the town manager's office that we did get the $50,000 earmark from Representative Sina. So
Well, that's available July first.
that's available July first.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so we're still waiting to hear back from the senator.
Selfishly, does that get infused right into our budget right now at that point?
Yeah, as soon as it's available, it would be there. Ideally, we would like to be able to, portray that to the public as this is the cost of the building, we're bringing it down by this much. If we're using it for MIPA permitting, that permitting, well, you have 50,000 in this budget for the MIPA permitting right now.
I put that in before we heard from Dan, so I took a sigh of relief once I put that in. That was based upon the Hopkinton price that was paid,
Right.
other things that we've done and some research that I had done. So to hear you say 25 to 40 made a lot more sense because that was not,
Right.
Hopkinton was not a bundled submission. It was
Okay.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I think we're in the right ballpark, yeah.
So I think we can still, it would be available to us right away. We will still be able to list it, because if we spent it on schematic design, it doesn't come out of the total project cost. We still want to be able to say that is a savings out of the total project cost. So
Yes.
because you're carrying that in the total project cost, that MIPA permitting, you'll still be able to say that. So then we just need another, $1.5 million worth of grants.
Let me ask one question, and maybe this is silly that I'm asking this, the numbers that I'm carrying here for both Vertex and Cap is contained in this total project budget.
Right.
So.
Even the schematic
even
design
the
portion.
So the $100,000, which was.
Okay. So then I think what we should be carrying then is the 300,000 of original housing choice
Yeah, that's at the bottom.
should be, and you have it here, but I'm not. When I did the 4-page pamphlet, I didn't use the 300,000 housing choice as coming out of the total project cost.
Yes.
Because I was
Yeah.
thinking about it as before that.
So what I found is the cleanest way to, or in my opinion, the cleanest way to get this and show the taxpayer what the ask is going to be is that we put. This is what the entire project costs.
Right.
And then below the line, we have everything that we've done or achieved to date,
Right,
therefore resulting in here's your ask of it.
okay,
And so
all right,
the 16.9 that I have right now contains or should contain your multicolored.
right.
thing.
So I think that's the important distinction is that in Robert's memo, the 16.9 doesn't give us credit for the 300,000 or the 30,000.
That was by intent. That was to be conservative.
Agreed, but what I'm saying is as we're trying to narrow that gap,
Yes,
we shouldn't be shorting ourselves that
No, no.
because that
way-
is the
way
gap.
he's proposing to do it, the way you want to do it.
Yeah,
With a total cost for everything. These are what we've already assigned some funds to, and therefore our cost is already down to whatever the number is.
agreed. Agreed. I'm just saying that when Dan was reading the memo again and kind of gulping a little bit about that $2 million gap.
Yeah.
The gap is
Less than-
$2 million minus the 300 housing choice, minus the 50,000 earmark, minus if we get the 500,000 for the
note on the
water.
Just
Right,
for
so-
clarification, the total project cost includes everything that we're doing right now is what? All the
That's what-
money
that's what
we're
I'm
spending now
saying, is that-
included in the total budget.
Yes, because
Yes.
all the money that's not coming out of the taxpayer pocket is really important to show.
Yes.
Agreed, yep, okay.
What was the timeline for the hard box to come in for us?
Well, we have to pay for it by June 30th, so.
Oh, yeah, you didn't mention that tonight, but. He's supposed to have documents to them by around the first of June. And then they're supposed to have the next few weeks in June to do their work, and then get it to us by the third week of June.
That's correct.
Then we have the last week to look at.
And so one thing that Katie and I have talked about is with this project being unique, that the goal is to go for the whole enchilada at fall town meeting for the ask. Is a potential second estimate to make sure that we're confident in the number that we're going forward with. I have been working on a few other vendors to get that number that you have there rated down, just to make it a little less sting, if that's the route that we want to go.
Yeah.
And I do think there would be time that if that decision's made after we get Fogarty's number, we can still do. We can still,
Okay.
I can go out, get a number, get an estimate, and then call Fogarty and say, you owe us a phone call, and we're gonna do some reconciling here to be confident about the number that we have for construction.
Okay, all right. All right, anything else financially? No, okay, is there, actually, before we go to public input, well, this can go with our next meeting, but I just as a reminder to everyone that the senior center and the building committee are having a booth at the Devon's Food Truck Festival on May 31st. I believe it's from 10 to 4. I'm planning to do basically the same booth as we did at Newton Street, where I have the back wall with the drawings up on the back wall. The Friends are going to test out a flea market table to see if they can offload some stuff and make a little bit of money, and as a test for doing it on a larger scale. The goal with that is a booth at the Harvard flea market in October, and working it through the senior center, because we help people downsize. And so if you could downsize and with your stuff that you don't need, raise money for the new senior center, it's sort of a win for everybody. So if anybody is available to do it.
It's just between you and me.
Can anyone work the booth with me? Or even
Yeah,
for an, no, May 31st, even for just an hour.
What day is it? Of the
It's
week.
a Saturday.
I may be able to.
Okay.
Just depends what I should.
Just drop by even for an hour or something, because between, if I'm the only person in there being able to collect money for stuff, if the friends are gonna be there for part of the time too, but it'll be a lot to be explaining the building and collecting money and all that.
Where is it?
It's on, Verbeck Field on Antietam.
The pretty now.
Yeah, it's, no, that's Rogers Field. So this is the one kind of behind Clear Path, so it's not the lower fields that face out onto West Main. It's, you know how, up the hill from there, but before Rogers Field, so kind of squished in between there. There'll be lots of signs out that day. So thank you if anyone can come.
I can let you know.
Okay. All right. Any public input?
One scheduling question, just,
Yeah.
Based on our work plan, we had scheduled another building committee because we had to postpone last week.
Right.
It'll be next week.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessary. I know that we are probably gonna need, once we have updates, when we have another talk with National Grid and
Yeah.
National Heritage.
Yeah.
But if that's something we want to postpone next meeting and get back on track, we can do that. And if there's anything that's really important, we can bring it up to you and hold the committee if there can be a quick meeting, you know.
So that would bring us to, if we skip next week, then that brings us to, what is that, June 5th then? Is the next one? Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. All right, Pauline, you have your hand up?
I'm trying to unmute. I have to say this. I am absolutely astounded by the dedication you all have. I am exhausted just listening to your meetings. I can only imagine what you all do to prepare for this. So I want to thank you. Even though I'm not in agreement with everything, you really are a dedicated group of people. With that said, I think there's been a little bit of cart before the horse based on the memo I read today and what I've heard tonight. I think maybe you spent money before you needed to. And I'm not gonna take issue with that. I just want to share that as a thought process because I hear now we need more money for this and more money for this, and we need tests for this and tests for that. And maybe we should have done that before we selected a site. That's just my thought on that. But really, you all are doing a great job. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pauline. All right, so next meeting, June 5th, 6 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All in favor? Chair says aye, adjourned at 8:27.